Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to Mornings with Mary Margaret. Let's just, you don't need to see inside that closet. You don't need to see that. It's fine. Everything's fine. Welcome. I don't know if you can hear me, honestly. I have a big, my exhaust fan going on, or attic fan going right now, um, because it is mildly cooler outside than it is inside. But mostly I'm just preparing because it's going to be warm today and it's very humid. So I'm trying to just get the breeze going while I can. Welcome to Mornings with Mary Margaret and Thankful Thursday in particular. Um, Lots of things to be thankful for today. And I had a lot of things, sort of a bottleneck of ideas of things that I could bring to you today. So, in the end, in order to make it easier on myself, I decided to share with you um, selections from my gratitude journal, um, because that doesn't take a lot of thought on my part. I've already written all these things down. Um, and I just started this gratitude journal. If my sister-in-law is watching this, she knows that she got me a gratitude journal a couple years ago. I lost it in the move. I don't know where it is. And I'm bummed about that because it was like a gratitude specific journal. But this one was a journal that I bought um, since in the now times since quarantine, um, and it's just a blank journal with um, no lines or dots or anything. Uh, but this is one of my favorite video game characters. Well, it's a character from probably my favorite video game. I don't like saying things like favorite, but I play this video game, played it several times, and I don't normally do that with video games. So maybe one day I'll bring that to a Thankful Thursday, but I'm not going to do that right now because I've got a lot of other things that I'm thankful for. I just want to preface this by saying I'm thankful for my husband. We had a really good time last night. We played some games and tried to and he was just a really good sport about it. I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't have been a good sport, but I'm just very thankful that I have a husband who is silly, or at least willing to be silly with me. He's not a super silly guy, but he'll be silly when the time is right, and I appreciate that about him. Um, but I don't want to talk too much about him online. And also, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm very in my gratitude journal. I have a whole section of my gratitude journal that's dedicated specifically to people, and so I'm gonna mention those people and mention the things that I'm grateful for about them, but I'm not going to go into huge detail about that because that seems sort of personal, and also I don't know, I haven't gotten their permission to talk about them on the internet, so I will not go into detail. But anyway, when I do my gratitude journal, I do a lot of these symbols. So I'm trying to show you the symbols without showing you the rest of the gratitude journal. Here we go. So this circle is a person. This is a person I'm grateful for. So the people that I'm grateful for in the past few days, I was grateful for Benjamin, and uh, he's just a really good person, and I love that he is a very good person, and that I always know he's very dependable. You always know exactly where he stands on anything, and you can always trust what he says. So that's hugely important more and more. And I don't think I really realized that or appreciated it when I met him, but it's something that over the years, we've been together 11 years now. Um, it's something that we've been that I have come to be very grateful for. I'm grateful for my mom. Uh, I've always loved my mom, and I've always felt really close to her, and like we had a lot in common for two people who don't have a lot in common, I guess. I don't know how to describe that. There's a lot of things that we don't share. Like, we're not interested in the same kinds of, like, I like video games. She's never liked video games. We both like music. She was a music teacher and a music performer. And I did that in high school. So we connected on that on a, sort of a deep level. But I like fantasy, and that's not really her thing, and I like writing, and that's not really her thing. She's One thing that we've connected on is doing taxes, because I used to volunteer doing taxes, and she's an accountant, so she sort of enjoys taxes, which is sort of weird. Maybe if you're an accountant, you understand. Um, and so we've bonded over that. Um, but mostly, I've always loved her, and I've always felt um, close to her. And then when I got into the kind of work where I worked with other people's parents a lot, I realized just how amazing my mom is, and how lucky I am and have always been to have her as my mom. I don't like comparing people, and like loving people because comparatively they're the best, but it's hard not to compare my mom to some of the even moderately adequate moms that I've met. Um, and I also don't like judging moms, obviously. But I mean, I worked in foster care, so it's sort of hard to um, get into foster care with an excellent mom. That's very mean. I probably shouldn't say that. And I haven't really thought about it. I need to drink more of my coffee, I think. But I've just seen some horrible things. And I've also seen some things that my mom would never do, whether they were horrible or not. Just things that like I wouldn't have been able to handle as a kid, and my mom would never have done them. And so I think every kid um, needs a specific kind of mom. And I don't know about my brothers. I have other siblings that my mom was a mom to, and I don't know how they fared with her, but I mean, from my perspective, they fared pretty well. But maybe they have different opinions. I don't want to speak for them, but my mom, for me, was is was when I was growing up exactly what I needed to be supported and feel loved, and feel like I could leave her house and do, be myself at school and with friends and stuff like that. And she continues to be. It's hard for her because we live so far away, but she continues to be the best mom she could possibly be to a daughter who is living so far away. And I'm grateful for her and all of the hard work and sacrifice, but also just who she is, um, and how she's always just been who she is. And um, in being who she is, she taught me a lot about who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be. Moving on, because I said I wasn't going to get into detail, and then I totally did. Whoops. All right. The next person I was grateful for was Katri. Katri is my cousin. Um, she's the single coolest person I know. She and her husband live in sort of a tiny house. I haven't been there, but I remember she described it as it was a tiny house, but then the person who built it like added on stuff. So part of their house is designed like a tiny house. Their bed, I think, is in a loft sort of situation, and then they added things, and then they also have a Winnebago in the backyard that she uses as her office right now. She is a teacher, um, and they have chickens and cats, and I can't describe. They always have the best names for their cats ever since they were kids. Like, well, not her husband. I have no idea what he named his cats, but her and her brothers, my other cousins, always had the best names for their cats. She currently has a cat named Meatstick, and then another cat called Poster Nutbag. These are references to songs, I believe. I think is what she said. But even if they're not, it's great. And then, and when they had a cat that had a hole in its stomach, and they called it Stitch Belly. And then that cat had kittens, and one of them looked had like the same sort of like markings, and so they call it Stitch Belly Clone. It's just great. And then um, they had the orange kitties, which were the cats that were outdoor cats when they lived. Well, at least I think they still have them at their parents' house. They're sort of like they're the angry cats. For one thing, they're the cats that survived the great culling of the mountain lion. Is that what we call those? Pumas? I don't know. Whatever the mountain cat is that seduced all their boy cats and ate them. They didn't seduce the orange kitties, or if they did, the orange kitties somehow made it out alive. And so I don't know why I'm talking so much about her cats, except that I don't particularly want to talk about her on the internet. But she is she's the single coolest person I know, and I'm so lucky to be connected to her in a way that lets me, like I was going to text her after I was done with this, and I don't, I don't know what I did to be able to deserve the ability to just text her whenever I want to. I don't text her nearly as much as I should or as much as I want to, but that's just me. I just don't talk to people as much as I want to. Um, and then the next person I'm grateful for is the judge. Um, she's my boss. She's technically not my boss, but I do work for her. I have a supervisor, and she, I suppose, could be considered his boss. Um, but I have a very sort of like um, two parent relationship with the two of them. Um, in a lot of ways, they're interchangeable for my position. But she, as the judge, is especially we've been working on trying to have court online, and we've been working on that for the past month or so, and we've been taking it really cautiously and slowly because we want to do it right. And every step of the way, I've just been reminded how great it is to work for someone who you respect um, and just trust. And like, if there's a word for the combination of respect and trust that allows you to just like feel confident that um, what they're doing that what they're doing is something worth following, you know, the great sense of comfort, I guess, in working for her. I don't ever feel like, um, I mean, we do legal stuff, and I don't know the law near, of course, obviously as well as she does, but um, maybe even as well as I should. But but we're working with legal stuff, and we're working with people's rights and people's their freedoms and that sort of thing. And she doesn't take that lightly, and I don't take that lightly. And so I've always felt, ever since meeting her the first time, I think, um, I've always felt like I could safely defer to what she thinks is right. And I think that that's a huge weight off when it comes to doing some of the harder work that we do. It is it is a relief to be able to say, well, if the judge says it's okay, then it's okay. And to really, really believe that, as opposed to, well, if the judge says it's okay, I guess it has to be okay because she's the judge, which is also true. I mean, if the judge orders something, it's ordered, it's done. Um, but that I also trust those things. Um, and that's huge. And the more I think about it, with all of this craziness that's going on right now and all the work we're having to put into bringing all of our processes online, as well as just, I mean, because Texas has reopened, we have to also follow guidelines about having in-person court now. And I mean, we won't until next month, but and we're preparing for that. But so much of that falls on her shoulders. I mean, she delegates and everything, but because the way the guidelines have come down, they've come down from the state and from the Office of Court Administration and that sort of things. She's the one who knows all of those things, and so she ends up being sort of the filter through which all of the decisions are put in order to be made correct. And that's a lot of responsibility and a lot of work that she ends up having to do. And I just I'm glad that she's the one doing it, and I'm glad that I can um, trust the decisions she makes. Um, so I didn't write my gratitude journal last night because I fell asleep. So that is the number. That is the people portion. The next thing that I have on my list is this triangle, upside down triangle, which is a thing in my house. And by thing, I mean that very liberally. Like, I think most of them have been literal things, but like a noun in my house, basically. Um, the first thing I was thankful for was my dishwasher. Um, we have a lot more dishes these days, and um, it is. We used to not have a dishwasher. I mean, there were long periods of my life where we didn't have a dishwasher, or we had a dishwasher that wasn't very good, so we didn't really use it anyway, um, or we only used it on certain things. And the dishes got washed, and everything was fine. It wasn't like the end of the world, but it's so nice. It's such a relief to be able to, after eating dinner or something, just rinse off your plate and put it in the dishwasher. You don't have to wash all the dishes. You don't have to dry them immediately and put them away. Um, and once the dishwasher washes them, by the next morning they're dry, so you can just put them away without having to dry them. Like, I'm very thankful for that. Another thing that I'm thankful for is my new headset. I have for my other computer. Um, I have a gaming headset. Honestly, it's a set of headphones, and then it has a microphone, and it's actually wireless. It's got a dongle that you plug into the like a USB port on the computer, and then it's Bluetooth to the headset. It's really really nice. Um, I've had it. I bought it in quarantine, um, and it's really nice to have it. It provides a level of I mean, I'm doing so many video calls these days, and most of them, well, maybe not most of them, a bunch of them, probably half of them include Ben. So I don't use the headset because he's just like sitting right next to me or whatever. Although sometimes we both have a headset, so we'll both use our headsets so that we can both um, have a designated mic, and that's something that we could never do before. Because it's just easier for people to hear us if we're not like yelling across the room at the mic that's by the computer. Um, and it's easier for us to hear other people. We can have it in the headphones and turn it up as we need to, as opposed to having it in the room, maybe being picked up by the mic, etc. And yeah, so I like my headset. And then I said I can't not be grateful for the Nintendo Switch. Um, I write here that it's gotten me through some tough times in the pandemic, and I when I say that, I mean there were definitely days where I just like I didn't know what to do. I like there were things like there's a lot about my job that I can't do from home. There's a lot about my job that has been put on hold for the past couple months. But uh, I just like I don't know. I was processing everything that was going on, and um, I it helps me when I'm processing things to be doing something. And it probably would have been helpful if I had done something like mow the lawn or gone for a run or something. But sometimes that just wasn't a thing I could get myself to do. I'm getting better at that, but for a while it was just too hard. Um, and so the thing that I would do would be to play the Nintendo Switch, and um, and also there were ways in which the Nintendo Switch brought me closer to some people because they were also playing and we were playing online together. Um, and so that was a good feeling to be able to play with other people and connect with people over this thing. So I'm very grateful for the Switch in the way that it has helped me in this weird time. Um, the next thing on my list of things is this shiny triangle, and that is something from my day, like an event or just a thing that existed in my day. The weather has been really good the past couple of days. It's been rainy and humid, but it's gotten sunny during the day, and so that's always nice. And it helps sort of like burn off the wetness in the ground so that the dogs don't get muddy. That's always nice. Ben and I go for walks every day. We take the dogs on a walk together, and I'm grateful for that. Uh, sorry, I'm like burping. I'm like a tantric burping. Um, and so I'm grateful for those walks. It usually happens right after he leaves work. So, so we talk about how his day went, and we, well, I mean, how our days went, but um, his day is usually more full of things. Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, so it's just a good time. It's an opportunity to talk and spend time together. Um, then the next thing that I have on here was I was watching Buffy, doing a Buffy watch with some friends, and one of my favorite characters died. And I mean, I've seen all of Buffy before, so I knew that she was going to die, and it wasn't a surprise. And it's rough the way in which she dies. Like they're trying in the show, they're trying to make the person who kills her into just like the worst possible villain. So he really um, goes out of his way to. It's not gruesome. It's just heartbreaking. So we were watching this together, 4 or 5 of us. A couple people had never seen it before, and a couple people had, and um, it reminded me of this quote that I'm gonna butcher because I can't think of um, the exact words that she said, and I can't even remember who she was, but she was on a podcast I was listening to, and she was talking about how kids, fairy tales need happy endings because kids sort of need happy endings. When you're telling a kid a story, they need a happy ending um, for various developmental reasons. Like um, we just like have as children, it's easier and more enjoyable, I guess, for us to process happy endings. But as adults, the quote that I'm going to butcher is adults sometimes like to cry over our novels. And I think that's true, especially when you're able to share a pain together and share a pain that is real but not real at the same time. Like this character isn't a real person, and this villainous thing that he did was not real, didn't really happen. Um, and but it's a cathartic pain that stands in for a lot of the pain that we feel about other things that are real. And we were able to feel it together because we were watching the TV show together. Um, and so that was something I was grateful for that day was uh, being able to share a fake pain in a way that it's hard to share a real pain. Um, and then one of the other things I was grateful for was leftover jambalaya. I had leftover jambalaya for lunch the other day, and that stuff only gets better in over time because it just sort of like chili, when you get the leftovers and they're better than the real thing because the spices have sort of like permeated the whole. It's great. Um, the next thing I'm grateful for 5 things every day. The next thing that I'm grateful for is this little upside down T, I guess. I don't know. I just made these symbols up. They don't mean anything. They just like represent something in my head. And that's something in the world that I'm grateful for. And I've tried to make it big things, but I don't know how much I'll keep that up. The first thing, of course, that I was grateful for was doctors who care. And I'm sure that it is possible to become a doctor and not care about people. There are a lot of benefits to being a doctor, and there are a lot of skill sets that go into being a doctor. And I imagine that some people who become doctors do it for reasons that don't involve wanting to help people. Um, I imagine those people exist, but um, the doctors who I know personally, or at least feel like I know personally, like like I have a radio show and so I listen to them regularly. Not Dr. Laura or anything like that, but like physicians who talk about big physicians on the radio. Um, Especially right now, it's clear how hard their job is, and it's sort of like what I was saying with the judge. A lot of responsibility falls on them to make decisions, and um, that is just immeasurably stressful, and people's lives are at stake a lot of the time. And they do it every day. Every day that they're asked to come in, they come in, and I'm grateful for that because without that, I don't know where we would be as a world right now. I don't know where I would be personally. There's a lot of times in which doctors have um, stepped in and done difficult things in my life that that changed my life for the better. So I am grateful for those people who have made that decision to do that job, even though it's very hard, and to do it every day, even though it keeps getting harder. Another thing that I was grateful for was high speed internet. Um, I mean, I was grateful for it this day because it was connecting me to people. I was able to talk to people and play games with people. And I think there was one conversation that I was having where it was a little glitchy. And so it was like, oh no, without this, where would I be? Um, but I also just think about how this pandemic is so much different from the 1918 pandemic because of the way that we're able to communicate, both within a family, not far away from me, not super far away from each other in terms of like my family's in Chicago, but also amongst, the nations, and how people who are researching coronaviruses in China are able to and have been able to share their research almost instantaneously with people who can then use it and change it and do things with it um, across the world. And that's amazing and fantastic. Um, I'm also grateful for broadcasters who keep working and who show the whole world their homes and their closets. There's this guy, we watch the Weather Channel at work. We just always have the Weather Channel going. Well, not always, but most of the time we have the Weather Channel going on the TV at work. And there's this guy, we never have the volume up, so I don't really know what he's saying. But there's this guy who's clearly in his office at home, because you can see his like bookcase behind him. He's carefully aimed his camera at like a sparse selection of his office. So it's like in a corner. There's not much there, and just every day he's there. And I don't know what he's talking about, because I don't think he's doing like the weather, like meteorologist stuff. I think he's like doing, like, this is the Weather Channel. They talk about all sorts of stuff, and that even tangentially relates to the weather. And so he talks about that stuff, and he he's just always there, and he's doing his job. And I know a lot of people are doing their jobs, but I think it's something special that we have people who are like, okay, I guess I've got to do this at home now, and I will. Um, the next thing I was grateful for was the supply chain managers, who have a very stressful job right now. I'm thinking about people in logistics, people who are. I was listening to a story the other day about a potato farmer, who he usually sells his potatoes. I think it's potatoes. Yeah, he usually sells potatoes to restaurants, and we're talking big restaurants like McDonald's. Um, and so when he sells potatoes, he sells truckfuls of potatoes, and he sells them on um, huge numbers, like huge cratefuls of potatoes, because that's the order, or that's the amount in which McDonald's needs it. They don't need it in the small 5 pound bags that people get them at the grocery store. And so he's in this situation right now of McDonald's is buying significantly less potatoes, but also other restaurants that he sells to are buying no potatoes at all, or need no potatoes, or are not going to fill their orders that they put in previously, or they're not going to pay for the orders. They're going to be able to pay for the orders that they made previously. Um, but people still need potatoes. They're just like the grocery stores are out, because the people who supply to grocery stores are now having a huge demand, but they don't have the potatoes. Um, so logistically, he has to figure out, how am I going to either sell my potatoes to a grocery store? Like, can I bag them into 5 pound bags? Is there some way I can do this? Um, or loses potatoes, and so like not have anything to make money on, and waste a whole year of work. Um, and I just don't envy the kinds of decisions that supply chain managers have to deal with right now. And I'm very grateful to the ways in which they're trying to solve problems bigger than themselves. This particular potato farmer, um, I forget where he went on the internet, Twitter, Facebook, or something, and he just posted, "Hey, I'm going to have a literal pile of potatoes, um, that are going to go bad, but I can't sell them, and there's nothing I can do with them. But if you need some potatoes, as many as you want, just come take them." And people from across the country drove to his farm and picked up potatoes for things like food pantries, for their families, for grocery stores, food pantries was the one that got me. Was like, yeah, obviously food pantries have the same suppliers as grocery stores often. And if grocery stores aren't going to be turning things down at this point. So, yeah, so uh, that was huge. And that was probably not a solution that can be long term, but it was a solution that he was able to come up with in the moment. And I think that there's a hybrid of those two things going on in the world right now. People coming up with long term solutions to problems that may persist for a while. People coming up with just like in the moment solutions because the problem is right now, and a solution needs to happen right now, and they're doing it. I have expended my time. Um, and the other things, the last thing that I have on my list is that circle with a line through it, or a line sort of through it. Um, and that's just a gimme. It's a free space. I can be grateful for anything in those spaces. And a lot of two of the times now I've said something about my dogs. So that's the kind of thing that I'm grateful for. So I have enjoyed this process of starting a gratitude journal. I find it valuable to force myself to think about gratitude, not in the sense of like, oh, this could be worse, or oh, this is better than this alternative, um, or like I don't deserve this, but I have it anyway, like those sorts of things, because that those things don't feel like gratitude to me, or they don't feel like the purest kind of gratitude. And so it's been useful and helpful for me to have to think about things in a truly grateful sort of way. And I'm hoping, that over time it will change the way I see the world, on a regular basis. And I've only been doing it for a couple of days strong, so can't guarantee that that's going to happen, but I'm confident that it will, because I think that's just how it works. And so I'm going to do my next entry for yesterday because I fell asleep today, right now. Um, and yeah, I want you all to have a good day, have a good Thursday, have a good rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, don't do drugs, stay in school, tip your waitstaff. It's very important.